After a week of giving my stepbrother the silent treatment, I ran into him coming home without his keys. He shot me a cold look and held out his hand. Keys. Kiss. I froze, hesitating for a second before firing off a triple shot of questions. Are you sure? Right now? I don't think this is a good idea. He gave me a weird look, then said firmly, hurry up. The next second, I leaned in and planted a loud, smacking kiss on his cheek. You're the one who asked for a kiss, I mumbled weakly. Shock, despair, and disbelief all flickered across Gavin's face at once. He stood there, stunned, for a full 5 seconds before stumbling back a step. I said keys. As in, for the door. A vein started throbbing on Gavin's temple. His normally pale skin was now a delicate shade of pink. I was stunned, too. I mean, what kind of normal person just randomly blurts out a word in English like that? You can't really blame me for taking advantage of the situation. Especially since my personal best in high school English listening comprehension was a glorious 8 out of 100. I didn't need a mirror to know my face was bright red. But I couldn't lose my nerve. I deliberately shot back, what, you study abroad for a few years and forget how to speak plain English? Gavin's chest heaved. The wind blew his long hair into a mess, revealing streaks of sea mist blue. A perfect match for his mood. We just stood there, glaring at each other, totally speechless. It was my dad who broke the silence. Well, look at this. The house is so fancy now, we've got a couple of doormen. I was the first to look away, turning to my dad and Gavin's mom, Helen. I quickly linked my arm with hers and whined, Helen. Look at Gavin, acting like some kind of punk. Gavin seemed to still be rebooting his entire reality. He didn't even react to my jab. Helen teased him a bit, following my lead, which finally snapped him out of it. She opened the door. I deliberately hung back, whispering over Gavin's shoulder as we went in. So, is it true what they say about guys with long hair? Gavin hissed through his teeth, Daisy. I stuck my tongue out at him. Just before going inside, I shot him a playful look and teased, oh, look at the pouty princess. I'd been crushing on my brother for a long time. It all started when I was 5. I can still see it like it was yesterday. The gentle, beautiful Helen, holding Gavin's hand. His little face was completely blank until he saw me, and then it broke into this brilliant smile. Gavin inherited all of his mom's best features. Even at 8, he was handsome enough to be a child model. The girl next door used to tease me, Daisy, your dad got you a childhood groom. I asked naively, what's a childhood groom? It means he belongs to you, she said. From that day on, I started to see Gavin as my property. I wasn't like the other little girls who liked dolls and Barbies. My only interest was dressing up Gavin. My dad loved buying jewelry and clothes for Helen. So, naturally, I spent my allowance on all sorts of little trinkets for Gavin. They weren't worth much. But I picked out every single one myself. Later, I learned what childhood groom really meant. But the possessiveness and the habit were already too ingrained to change. When I got a little older, I realized I was in love with Gavin. One wrong step led to a whole mess. He found out after he graduated high school. After the SATs, my dad sent him abroad to follow his dream. It was only after Gavin left that I realized I had crippling separation anxiety. During that time, I wanted to be on a video call with him 24/7. I was a bundle of nerves every single day. My dad just thought I was having trouble adjusting to high school and let me take a month off. Every night, I slept in Gavin's room. Hugging his comforter. Breathing in his scent. Falling asleep with his face in my mind. This extreme longing can drive a person crazy. I don't know where I got the courage. But one perfectly ordinary day, at just 16, I got on a plane and flew across the ocean by myself. The whole family panicked when they couldn't reach me for over 10 hours. It wasn't until I landed and called Gavin, crying, Gavin, please don't leave me. That was the first time Gavin ever skipped class, to find me, alone in a foreign country. That night, he patted my back to help me sleep, just like when we were little. I sobbed, clutching his collar. Then I carefully asked the question, "Gavin, can you please like me?" His expression froze for a second. But then he smiled and said, "Of course I do. I'm your brother, and I love you more than anyone. Okay?" After a peaceful dinner, Gavin and I went upstairs. Not long after, he was knocking on my door, his face dark. "Where are my clothes?" I played dumb. How would I know? Gavin ground his teeth. "I need to take a shower. Give me my pajamas." I pulled him into my room, crossed my arms, and said nonchalantly, "Then you need to apologize." Gavin laughed, a bitter, disbelieving sound. "Apologize? Me?" That's right. If my dad hadn't called us home for dinner, Gavin and I would still be in the middle of our Cold War. The reason was simple. He'd caught me red-handed at a club. Gavin lectured me with a grim face, and I threw his time abroad back at him. Why was it okay for him to party his way through college, while I had to be buried in textbooks at the library every day? Anyway, it ended with my tears, as usual. And that's when the silent treatment started. I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, you. You need to apologize to me." Gavin took a deep breath. "I'll say it one more time. I only went to a place like that once when I was abroad, and it was to drop off a birthday present for a friend. I wasn't inside for more than 10 minutes. Of course, I knew that. I was just being difficult. Who let him go to a place like that anyway? He should know better." Seeing my completely unreasonable stance, Gavin did what he'd done so many times before. He gave in. "Fine. Let's just say I was wrong. I'm sorry." I kept my face neutral, showing no hint of victory, and just said a cold, "Oh." Gavin's long hair was tied up in a messy top knot, revealing a black obsidian stud in his ear. "So, can I have my pajamas now?" I put on an innocent face. "I never said they were in here." Gavin's face froze for a second. He said through gritted teeth, "Then where are my clothes?" I grinned. "In my dorm room." Since I started college, Gavin's been busy with his startup, so we don't see each other much. I secretly took the clothes he kept at home back to my dorm to hug while I sleep. Gavin was speechless. Before he could explode, I quickly added, "But I have a new set here. And it's a men's style, too." His expression softened slightly as he reined in his anger. "Fine, give me a set. I'll Venmo you for it." I bounced over to my closet and handed him a brand new set of silk pajamas. Gavin looked at the set in his hands. Then he looked at the matching one I was wearing, just in a different color. He fell silent again. "Daisy, you." Before he could finish, I cut him off. "Gavin, your face is so soft. Can I have another kiss?" 3 seconds later. Gavin walked out. "Oh, right." He walked out with a dark expression, holding the pajamas I gave him. I shrugged, not really caring. I replayed the look on his face in my mind one more time. TSK. So handsome. I should just have it preserved, captured in a specimen jar, frozen in that perfect moment. But then again, I could never bear to see Gavin in pain. I pulled out my phone and used a burner account to add Gavin on his work profile. He recently started a studio that makes custom, life-sized ball-jointed dolls. It's a high-end service, targeted at niche collectors and anime fans. Normally, I wouldn't know about this. Gavin's the type to only share the good news with my dad and Helen, never his worries. But I have my sources. After a little digging, I got his work number. "Hi, I'd like to place a custom order." Gavin must have been in the shower. It took him almost an hour to reply. I scratched my head, a little confused. Didn't he used to take, 15-minute showers? Why was he in the bathroom for so long today? Hello, here is our price list. Please take a look. I typed back like a true high roller. Give me the top of the line model. My only requirement is, it has to be realistic. Gavin replied like an automated chatbot, of course. You can rest assured the likeness will be up to 98%, and we can make adjustments until you are satisfied. That set my mind at ease. I paid the deposit listed on the price sheet right away. After he accepted the money, I slyly asked another question. Will you be making it personally? Gavin, each person in the studio is responsible for a different part of the doll's body. I was ecstatic. You do the face. I'll pay extra. Gavin hesitated for a moment before replying, okay. Thinking for a moment, I typed out hesitantly, is it possible? Gavin, what? I sent a lewd, winking sticker. Then I hinted again, you know, that thing, can it be installed? Gavin got it. He must have had customers with the same request before. He replied, yes, that's possible. Just send over the dimensions, along with photos of the face from different angles. Photos of the hands and legs would be even better. I gleefully sent over several pictures of Gavin to Gavin himself. To keep him from figuring out it was me. I specifically chose public photos from his college days. Just as I expected. Gavin went silent. Again. I could almost picture his face as he looked at his phone, his mind completely blown. Hello? You still there, hon? 5 minutes later, after composing himself, Gavin replied, what is your relationship to the person in the photos? I answered truthfully, I'm his girlfriend. A soon-to-be girlfriend counts, right? Gavin stopped replying again. Half an hour passed. He asked, this order requires an in-person handoff. Is that acceptable? The more I looked at that smiley face, the creepier it felt. But I steeled myself and replied, of course, that's fine. Gavin, great, I look forward to meeting you. For some reason. That sentence sent a weird shiver down my spine. But lust quickly clouded my judgment. Oh, and for the dimensions, bigger is better. Gavin, okay. I don't know if Gavin slept well. I, for one, slept great. When I got up, I slipped straight into Gavin's bedroom. I crouched quietly by his bed, just staring at his face. Every one of Gavin's features was perfect. A face like his could easily look feminine. But he also had this incredibly strong bone structure. It gave him a kind of refined, elegant look that was hard to describe. Maybe because he loved art, Gavin started growing his hair out after his SATs. When it was down, he looked a bit wild. But when he tied it back, he looked so gentle you couldn't help but want to get closer. My fingers itched. I picked up a lock of his hair and wound it around my finger. It felt like the tangled thread between us that could never be cut. Before I could even finish a tiny braid, Gavin's raspy voice broke the silence. What are you doing? I jumped. But I quickly propped my chin on my hand, my eyes crinkling into a smile. Gavin, why is there so much trash in your garbage can? He was probably still groggy from sleep and didn't get it. I teased, you need to take it easy with that stuff. It's not good for you. You're just reinforcing my stereotypes about guys with long hair. Daisy, are you asking for it? Gavin ignored me and got up, heading for the bathroom. I followed him like a shadow, just like when we were little. Gavin, can I braid your hair? Please. He refused with a blank expression. And warned me, if you use your key to get into my room again, I'm changing it to a keypad lock. I just giggled. Hee, I know how to pick locks. Gavin gave me a long, deep look but didn't say anything. His eyes were fixed on the two of us standing side by side in the mirror. I grinned. Perfect. Matching couples outfits. But after breakfast, I noticed Gavin had borrowed a new set of pajamas from my dad. And the one that matched mine? It was tossed in a corner of his closet. Before Gavin left for the day, I forced him to sit in front of the mirror. I personally tied his hair into 2 braids before I'd let him go. He suddenly grabbed my wrist and asked softly, "You haven't been getting into any trouble behind my back lately, have you?" I felt a pang of guilt. But on the surface, I was cool as a cucumber. Does writing smutty fanfic about us count? Gavin's mouth twitched. He looked like he wanted to curse me out. But in the end, it just came out as a sigh. Daisy, you're still young. There are so many great people out there for you to meet. I was unmoved, looking at him with a blank expression. But everything I ever learned, I learned from Gavin. Even how to love. He taught me that. I don't need someone better. I just want Gavin. I don't want to leave him. But someone with a moral compass as strong as Gavin's would never accept it. I forced a sweet smile. Gavin, you have to go, right? You should get going. Before he left, he patted my head. It felt like a comfort, but also like an apology. I sat for a while in the spot where Gavin had been. Then I pulled out my phone and switched to a certain app. The target's red dot had left the house. I casually made my way to the basement, got in my car, and followed him. I can't help it. If I can't see Gavin, I start to feel anxious and sick. I'm not a psycho. I'm just chasing after my air, my water, my food. Gavin was meeting up with his studio partners. I breathed a sigh of relief and stood by the door, bored, listening in. Gavin, who's that in your social media post? Gavin's confused voice came through. What post? I covered my mouth to stifle a laugh. This morning, I'd snuck onto his phone and posted a selfie of myself. The caption was my one and only. Of course, I blocked Helen and my dad. After a moment, Gavin said calmly, "That's my sister. She was just messing around with my phone." A few surprised voices erupted in the tea house. Damn, your sister's gorgeous. But you guys don't really look alike. Can I call you brother-in-law? Do you mind if I ask your sister out? I instinctively held my breath, waiting for Gavin's answer. What would he say? Get angry? Say no? Or? Sure, Gavin said lightly. You can ask her out. Those 3 little words were like a dagger dipped in ice. They plunged right into the softest part of me. I blinked, not realizing my legs had gone weak. I didn't want to hear the rest. I turned and headed for a traditional medicine clinic. At 4 in the afternoon, Gavin came home. The moment he walked in, he frowned. Why does it smell like Chinese medicine? I walked out of the study and said casually, "Oh, that's mine." Gavin's tone was a little urgent. Are you sick? Why didn't you tell me? I glanced at the housekeeper in the kitchen, my voice barely a whisper. Bro, I can't just keep liking you forever. I think you had a point this morning. So I'm going to try some herbal medicine to get my system back in balance. I heard it works really well. After I said that, I didn't wait for his reaction. I just called out to the housekeeper, "Auntie, could you bring that to my room in a bit?" Thanks. Half an hour later, she brought up a cup of black, murky liquid. I stared at it for a few minutes. Then I grabbed the cup and chugged it. A second later, I spat it all out. What the hell? Who the hell swapped my medicine with an extra strong Americano? Not sure. Let me try again. Tui. I could guess with my eyes closed who was behind this. I found it pretty funny. What was Gavin thinking? Did he really think I couldn't tell the difference between herbal medicine and a cup of coffee? Once the bitter taste faded, I went downstairs to dump the Americano. But I ran right into Gavin as soon as I walked out. Gavin, where's my medicine? Gavin casually tied back his long hair, thoughtfully advising, you should drink less of that random stuff. All medicine has side effects. I couldn't help but complain, but you can't just switch my medicine with coffee. Gavin's eyes narrowed, clearly displeased with my whining. But he didn't say anything. I didn't get the answer I wanted, and I started to get angry. Gavin, you're being so unreasonable. You're the one who told me not to like you, and you're the one who won't let me take the medicine. A vein throbbed in Gavin's forehead. He let out a heavy breath and said in the gentlest voice he could manage. Daisy, you're still young. You don't know what love is. It's probably just possessiveness, a habit. I had no interest in listening to his lectures. I clapped my hands over my ears, refusing to communicate. I'd always been a brat like this with him. He should be used to it by now. Gavin's handsome lips moved a few times, but nothing came out. He sighed, his voice full of helplessness. Daisy, we're family. Family can't have these kinds of forbidden feelings. Being my brother meant that some things were just impossible. I took a step forward, ready to argue. But Gavin suddenly took half a step back. He was keeping us at a safe distance. That one step back felt like a blunt knife sawing back and forth across my heart. My voice was raw and tight in my throat. But Gavin, you taught me how to love someone. You never taught me how to stop liking Gavin. It was like a long, stubborn illness you can't shake. Time didn't cure it, it just made the symptoms sink deeper into my bones. How could he let me fall for him? And then cut those feelings away with his own hands? It was too cruel. My stare seemed to burn him. In the end, he couldn't stand to see my tears. He gently placed his hand on my head. Don't cry. It's all my fault. I dodged his touch. Then I turned and walked out of the house without looking back. Since I was little, was there ever anything I wanted that I didn't get, one way or another? What made Gavin think he was the exception? After leaving home that day and going back to school, I didn't contact Gavin at all. Life went on as usual, classes, meals, sleep. When my best friend, Chloe, took me out for afternoon tea, she brought up Gavin. It really has to be him? I didn't say anything, but Chloe understood. Yes. It had to be Gavin. Chloe sighed. But you know Gavin's obsession with the family is just as strong as your obsession with him. I nodded. It has to be him, and I'm sure he'll never love anyone else. Gavin's just a coward. This was going to be a long, hard battle. Chloe, who always knew me best, smiled and said, "So what's your plan?" I stared at the tens of thousands of dollars that had mysteriously appeared on my card, lost in thought. So, I'm planning to lower my expectations for him a bit. Put romance second to family, and let Gavin be a real big brother for a while. A few days later, I was on a plane flying across the ocean. The last time I was in this familiar place, I was with Gavin. I was a day later than expected. Gavin called my friends, my roommates, even my academic advisor. He got the same answer from everyone: Daisy went to the US for a research workshop. Chloe called me right away. You have no idea how frantic your brother was when he found me. I shrugged, unfazed. Chloe continued, especially when I told him you were going with a senior who's had a crush on you forever. His face just went black. That's right. I was paired with a senior for this trip. The professor arranged it, so I didn't have a choice. A foreign country, a guy and a girl alone, a budding romance. What a perfect script. And better yet, it was set in the US, a place full of our good memories. What would Gavin be thinking? Would he think I was replacing our memories with someone new? A sudden phone call interrupted my thoughts. It was my dad. Daisy, honey, why did you suddenly go to a workshop without telling me? Your brother had to ask around just to find out you'd gone abroad. As usual, I deflected with a sweet, apologetic tone. I know, I messed up. I promise it won't happen again. I'm sorry for making you and Helen worry. I didn't even have to think to know there were 3 people huddled around that phone on the other end. After a bit more small talk, I suddenly said, "Oh, by the way, have my brother make a list of all the good food and fun places here and send it to me. I'm planning to go with a friend." The other end went silent. I rarely called Gavin brother. The whole family knew that. Even though they'd scolded me about it since I was little, I always just called him Gavin. As they say, when something's out of the ordinary, something's up. Sure enough, Helen asked the next second, Daisy, did Gavin do something to upset you recently? You want me to give him a talking to? I couldn't help but laugh. No, Auntie, my brother's been great to me. Besides, we're family. We don't hold grudges, right? Tell my brother to chill out, okay? My tone was casual, as if I'd really let it all go. But Gavin still didn't say a word. Daisy. I'm all packed. Let's go. My senior partner suddenly showed up, calling out loudly. I quickly replied, oh, okay. I'll be right there. Turning back to the phone, I switched back to my cheerful tone. Okay, the workshop ends in 2 weeks, but I'm going to stay and travel for another week, so don't rush me. Oh, and tell my brother to get that list to me ASAP. Thanks. After hanging up, I grabbed my backpack and headed out for my workshop duties. That night, when I got back, I habitually picked up my phone and opened a certain tracking app. The little red dot was hovering over the Atlantic Ocean. The workshop wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. During the lunch break, my partner and I quickly grabbed a bite and decided to head back to the hotel for a bit of rest. But I didn't expect to see a familiar face. Gavin? What are you doing here? Before he could answer, I quickly answered for him. Oh, came to check on my social life? Don't worry, I'm being a good girl. I'm doing just what you said, getting to know great people, see? I was an expert at pissing Gavin off. I'd been doing it for over 20 years, after all. The wind messed up Gavin's long hair, making the few blue streaks stand out. His jaw was tight, and his gaze fell on the senior standing next to me. My partner was good at reading people. I'll head up and rest then. See you after the break. I smiled and watched him get into the elevator. Gavin frowned and said, Who is he? I said nonchalantly, my senior partner. You heard him, didn't you? Gavin just watched me silently. As if he was trying to find some different emotion on my face. But clearly, he didn't find any. Gavin rubbed his forehead, looking like he had a headache. I'm asking about your relationship. I suddenly went silent. Then I asked him back, in what capacity are you asking me? That question clearly stumped him. I could see him visibly tense up. What? Was it that hard to answer? I kindly offered to answer for him. If you're asking as my brother, then I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer. After all, I can't guarantee that my partner and I won't have a relationship in the future. Silence stretched between us. I could feel the pressure dropping around Gavin. In the end, it was Gavin who caved first, turning to get a new room. I grabbed his wrist and said in a small voice, I booked a suite. It's a big room, I'll be scared at night. Gavin still couldn't bear to see me scared. He followed me up to the top floor. From the moment he stepped into the room, Gavin was busy unpacking my things. He sorted my clothes by category, just like he always did. He was like my most devoted servant, silently taking care of everything. Knowing I get headaches after my afternoon naps, Gavin left a glass of honey water by the bed. I've made a list of all the places you want to eat and see. After the workshop, I'll go with you, okay? I didn't say anything, just buried my face in the pillow and pretended to be asleep. See? Gavin was always like this. Always responding to me with the most accommodating attitude. And so, he logically became the perfect vessel for all my dark instincts and paranoid possessiveness. We weren't brother and sister. We were a knife and its sheath. By the time I finished my workshop duties for the day, it was already dark. My phone was completely dead. I figured Gavin had probably already eaten, so I didn't get him anything. I opened the door to the top floor suite. It was pitch black inside. My brow furrowed. Something felt wrong. Without a second thought, I rushed into Gavin's room. The lights were off, and there was a small lump on the bed. Gavin? I tiptoed over, afraid to wake him. In the moonlight streaming through the window, I saw that his face was abnormally red. When I touched his forehead, he was burning up. Damn it. He had a fever. No wonder he seemed off during the day. I was just about to go get some medicine. Suddenly, my wrist was gripped tightly. The momentum sent me tumbling onto the bed. Gavin was practically lying on top of me, his eyes glazed over. His long hair fell across my face, tickling me. I jumped. Gavin, can you tie your hair up? Gavin didn't speak, just stared at me blankly. As if he was trying to figure out who I was. I was about to make a sarcastic comment, but when I looked up, I saw that Gavin's eyes were wet. As far as I could remember, I'd never seen Gavin cry. But now, he was crying. I froze on the bed like I'd been struck by lightning, forgetting even how to breathe. Through the haze, I heard Gavin's choked voice. Daisy doesn't want her brother anymore, does she? My throat felt tight. I managed to answer, no, I don't not want you. Gavin seemed to be talking in his sleep. Why did you take so long to come back? Why didn't you answer my messages, giving me the silent treatment? You won't even buy your brother some fever medicine anymore? Daisy, didn't you say you'd only come to America with your brother? The 4 questions got quieter and quieter. By the end, his tone was almost pleading. I answered carefully, but you said you only wanted to be my brother. A brother can't ask for so much. Gavin suddenly choked, as if waking from a dream. That's right. We can only be brother and sister. I panicked. I was just trying to provoke you. How could you take it seriously? I fumbled, pressing down on Gavin's head, and messily kissed him. No. I'm going to like you. Gavin, you're mine. Gavin was stunned for a few seconds, then seemed to realize this wasn't a dream. He tried to push me away. Of course, I wasn't going to let him. Gavin, I tried, I really tried. But quitting you is harder than quitting air. My eyes started to sting. I blinked hard, then threw caution to the wind. Why don't you just strangle me? It would be less painful than this. But Gavin didn't. He held me like he did when we were little, sheltering me in his arms, a complete 360-degree shield. He gently patted my back. No dying. I couldn't bear it. Tears streamed down my face again. The day I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, Gavin held me just like this. He kept saying, I'm sorry. But I didn't understand. How could Gavin be the one saying those words? I was the one who kept dragging him down into the abyss. Why was he apologizing to his abuser? I pressed my head against his burning neck. I whispered, Gavin, have you ever heard the saying? Gavin, tell me. I'm listening. I tightened my grip on his collar and summoned a little courage. A twisted possessiveness can only be maintained by a twisted relationship. I'm sick. Can you be my medicine? Silence. A long silence. So long I thought time had stopped. But it hadn't. Time was still flowing, along with my breath and my heartbeat, toward a lightless wasteland. A long, long time. Then a voice, like a light cutting through the dark night, pierced the clouds and saved me. He said, okay. I borrowed some fever medicine from my senior partner for Gavin. Before bed, I turned on my phone and finally saw all the messages Gavin had sent me while it was off. No wonder he'd asked those questions. Gavin seemed exhausted and fell asleep on the bed. I couldn't sleep, so I took out a hair tie and started braiding his hair. When we were little, he was so clumsy, he always made a mess of my hair. After I threw enough tantrums, Gavin bought a row of Barbie dolls just to practice. I never thought the roles would be reversed, with me braiding his hair. Gavin looked so good with long hair. I remember being obsessed with a comic book in middle school. The main character had long hair. I begged Gavin, who was in high school at the time, to grow his hair out. He just pinned me to the sofa and tickled me mercilessly. I was so scared I never brought it up again. 3 hours later, Gavin's fever broke. He slowly woke up. I sat on the bed, watching as Gavin, now with 2 pigtails, sat up. "What are you laughing at?" Gavin asked, confused. I guiltily looked away and changed the subject. "Ahem, you hungry? I made you food." Gavin frowned, dismissing my cooking skills. Saying that is liable to summon Satan himself. I reverted to my usual smartass self. Hee, even Satan next door would be crying with envy. Gavin ordered takeout on his phone and got up to go to the bathroom. 3 seconds later, he walked back out, still with the pigtails. He pointed at his head. "You did this?" I played dumb, changing the subject again. Gavin, is it true what they say about guys with long hair?" Gavin gave me a deep look, then turned to take a shower. I quickly ran to the bathroom door and tried to open it. Great. It was locked from the inside. He anticipated my move. I pressed my face against the glass door and whispered like a little devil. "I want to see the pigtails. I want to see the pigtails. I want to see the pigtails." A few minutes later, Gavin came out again. Yep, still rocking the pigtails. That evening, I ate dinner, but Gavin didn't. That didn't stop me from feasting on the sight of his face, though. He was silent the whole time, occasionally looking up at me thoughtfully. I guess he was trying to remember what he said when he was delirious with fever. By the time I finished eating, it was already past midnight. Gavin stuffed me into the bathroom to take a shower. When I came out, he was on the balcony, on the phone. It looked like something serious, otherwise he wouldn't be frowning like that. I didn't bother him and just played on my phone. When Gavin finished his call and came back from the balcony, he stood in front of me and held out his hand. "Phone. It's late." I shot up, completely indignant. "Gavin, are you serious? I'm 20 years old, and you're still confiscating my phone?" He was unfazed. "I'll still be taking it when you're 60. You'll end up a 4-eyed old lady who can't even find a partner for senior square dancing." I was speechless. It wasn't that I didn't want to hand it over. I was just scared Gavin would secretly snoop through it. Gavin seemed to see right through me. "I already know you put a tracker on my phone." I was speechless. Gavin continued, seeing my futile resistance. "All right, I also know you're the one who ordered the custom BJD doll from me." I was speechless. How did he know everything? I asked, not ready to give up. "Don't tell me you read the smutty fanfic I wrote, too?" Gavin's brow twitched, and he gritted his teeth. "You actually wrote it?" "It's over." I walked right into that one. A master of self-sabotage. Gavin tucked me into bed and was about to go back to his own room. I grabbed his sleeve and said pitifully, "Gavin, can you sleep with me, please?" Every time I made that face, he gave in. This time was no exception. I deliberately pressed my whole body against him. "Gavin, are you my boyfriend now?" Gavin's breathing was steady. But I knew he wasn't asleep. Yes. I was even happier. If his arm wasn't holding me down, I would have jumped 3 feet in the air. But after the happiness came the anxiety. What if my dad and Helen don't approve? Gavin looked down at me. "You're worried about that now? Why didn't you think about that when you were being so bold before?" I knew he had a point, so I buried my head in his chest. Gavin couldn't take it anymore. "There's no milk in there for you." Oh. A while later, I was just about to fall asleep. Gavin suddenly spoke. "I just called Dad." "Me, huh?" I told him we're together. "Me, what?" He said he needs time to accept it. "Me, huh?" Gavin flicked my forehead. "Switch to manual, please." I shot up, sitting on his waist. You. How could you just tell them like that? What if they don't agree?" Gavin grunted under my weight and struggled to speak. I've been discussing this with them ever since you started having your psychological issues. Does that mean Dad and Helen knew I was after Gavin this whole time? And here I was, thinking I was so clever, playing the part of the perfect, loving siblings in front of them. The sleepiness that was about to overtake me vanished completely after hearing what Gavin said. I was wide awake. After the 10th time Gavin had to hold me down, he was out of ideas. What will it take for you to go to sleep? I thought for a moment, my eyes brighter than light bulbs. Read me a bedtime story. I'll find one for you. Gavin agreed. But when he saw the content and his own name, he had another breakdown. Daisy. You want me to read you the smutty fanfic you wrote about us? I whimpered, what's wrong with that? It's immersive. Gavin put the phone down, deciding to play dead. I started chanting, brother, 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 brother. Gavin couldn't stand it and covered my mouth. This is not an Amazon echo. I don't respond to a wake word. I was speechless. I stopped chanting and tried to will myself to sleep. A few minutes later, the room filled with the sound of steady breathing. I was just too curious, so I asked one more time, Gavin, is it true what they say about guys with long hair? Gavin, it's true. Now sleep. Me, I don't believe you. Not unless you let me feel. Gavin just stopped answering altogether. Feeling bored, I had no choice but to lie in his arms and go to sleep. In that space between sleep and wakefulness, I felt a gentle hand on my head. Gavin stroked my cheek and whispered in a deep voice, you little psycho, I'll be crazy with you.